welcome back to Fortner Industries. It's been a while since I gave an update on the Build Your Own Delorean kit from Eaglemoss, so I thought I would just give an update on where I'm at in the build kit and also showcase some of the modifications that the community has come up with these kits here. So as it stands now, I am on issue 54. I have completed issue 54, and some of the parts that you'll see are from a little bit later issues, but there was some missing back-ordered kits that were from like 55 through 62 or something. So they sent me some parts that were further ahead, and you can see them on here, but they're just sitting on there because I'm missing all of the middle kits. So that's one thing that you need to be aware of if you decide to do this is kits can run out, and their current strategy is just send you the ones that they have. But this is really intended to be built in sequence, so it can kind of screw things up. So I've contacted their customer support and have asked them to not send me any more kits until I get the ones that are on back order. But anyway, let's go over some of the details on this kit because it truly is incredible, the level of detail on this model here. So this is actually one of the very first kits, and you could think of it kind of like a teaser because it's like, oh, look how amazing this is right off the bat. And you realize that it's probably going to be another 100 issues before you actually get to put this on the car. So you can see the out of time license plate there, and it even has a holographic date sticker on the back there. So just the level of detail on this is incredible. This here is actual metal. It feels like it's been powder coated or sprayed with a clear coat over a base coat. Plastic in through here, and this bumper beam here is plastic, and you can see on the back side here what parts are metal and what parts are plastic. In these holes there actually will be lights, and also for the license plate light. So later on I'll have a kit that puts in lights, and the brake lights and reverse lights actually do function. So I'll show a little bit into that. I haven't gotten to the point yet where all the electronics are installed in the car, but some of the wiring is already done, so I'll show that in a little bit. So these are some of the upgrade kits that people in the community that are very, very passionate about these models have developed. These are not from Eaglemoss. They are from Model Mods here. They are based in the United Kingdom. And I have the FluxCapacitor, which is their custom version of the FluxCapacitor. And I have the Christmas tree modification. So these parts, Eaglemoss gives you very basic models of the FluxCapacitor and of the Christmas tree, which is really too bad because the FluxCapacitor especially is pretty much the key thing that people think of aside from the DeLorean when you think of Back to the Future. And they just have a single LED that illuminates it. There's no special sequencing or anything like that to really make it authentic. And it seems very, seems like an afterthought relative to the details elsewhere on the car. And the same thing for the Christmas tree too. There was just one or two LEDs that just turn on. But as you'll see here in a second, this upgrade adds in a lot more detail. So we'll come back to these in a minute. So here is the DeLorean as it stands at about episode 54 or kit 54. And you can see here that it's a beefy thing. These were a couple of the kits that came after 54. I think these are the early 60s. So you can see here, this is the hood, and once it's fully installed, it does actually pivot forward and open, and has some struts right here. But these are just set in place since I'm missing those intermediate kits. So I'm going to set this aside. And you can see in the chassis here, and just look at all of the wiring that goes into this thing. Zoom in a little bit and see if it can focus on that. I mean, every single one of these wires I had to individually dress. I used these tweezers here. Eaglemoss doesn't have any glue that's required. All of these are screw-in connectors, but some of these wires were just so small that I did use some model super glue just to make sure I could hold them in place, because they are tiny, tiny wires, and every single wire has a certain way that it's supposed to be run in order to be movie accurate. Spinning around back here, you can see some of the back side of the dash, more wires that run around in through here to be like the movie. If I turn it up on its side, you can see some of the detail inside here. Here's the radiator. There are radiator grills, and there are actual fans in the back here that spin. And again, these are things that you would never see once this is buried in all of the body work. There's really no way to look at it, but the detail is there, including these radiator hoses. It's just incredible. The amount of detail is clearly a passion project for the designers of this model. And I know several of the designers on this model actually worked on the real Delorean restoration, the one that's now sitting in the Peterson Museum. So rest assured, this is pretty much as accurate as you can possibly get at a scale size. Some of the lights here, these will go for the headlights and the turn signals. And the wires over here to do that. The steering will work, although it doesn't currently right now, but it does have an Ackerman steering linkage, and it will turn. You can see the steering bar is right here, and that will connect once this part gets fully bolted down in here, but I'll show that in a little bit later. And then something else unique about this model is the wheels do fold down in all four corners, so you can get that hover mode effect. And it's got disc brakes and the disc calipers in here as well. And of course it rolls, and these are real rubber tires, metal alloy wheels. So let's go up to the tub here. And actually, I'm going to take this out since this still hasn't been firmly installed yet. And here you can just see the incredible detail of this cockpit here. So there's the time circuits that you turn on from here. The date display, these are all backlit and will turn on with once the lighting effects are installed. You can see the detail in the dash here. It does go up to 95 miles an hour, which was the modification they made to the movie car, because in that time, speedometers were only allowed to go up to 85 miles an hour. And of course, the famous 88 miles an hour is above that. So they literally put a sticker over the speedometer that made it say 95 miles an hour. You can see the detail on the steering wheel here, the buttons. Everything has been followed to the movie. There's a speedometer up here that also is backlit. I don't remember what speed it shows on here, but I think it shows 88 miles an hour when it's lit up. All of the plutonium chamber lights, again, these are also lit up once everything is installed and powered on. Now these obviously aren't movie accurate here. This is how you control the lighting effects in the model once the car is fully built. So I don't have the master circuit board yet that controls all of the effects on the car, but these buttons will control each of the sequences and lighting effects. The seats are actual spongy material. They feel like a kind of molded vinyl or something like that. They're kind of rough. They don't actually feel like a fabric texture at all, but there is foam behind there that makes them squishy. And there's little seat belts as well. Safety first. The other thing, this goes back to the brake lights that I was talking about earlier, is the brake pedal here does actually function, and that pedal goes back to a switch, which is located right here, and that switch will turn on the brake lights. So the clutch pedal here and the gas pedal are non-functional. They're just fixed in place there. But the brake pedal does actually move. You see it moving there, and that is actually going to a brake light switch. So I'm going to set the tub aside here, and we'll just go into the chassis. We're going to get easier to look at with the tub out of it. So here is the chassis. This is all metal, and it is actually quite heavy. But let's show off some of the detail on this engine, because as I was building it, I was stunned at how much care they put into the engine here, and it really looks pretty cool. So here is the PRV V6 engine. You can see it has the belts here for the air conditioning compressor and the water pump, and the alternator is down in there. And these are the return lines for the radiator hose. So these radiator hoses here extend, and they go all the way underneath the car and then up to the front, and you can see the back side where those fans are mounted in place there. And all of this is true to life. Here's the transmission. There's a boot missing here. I couldn't find it in my kits. I think I might have a spare. I just hadn't put it on yet. But it does have a CV boot on all 4 of these corners, but this one was missing. And you can see the oil pan here. There's the oil filter, something else. And you can see part of the muffler here. Sorry if you hear my voice straining, it's really hard to hold this thing up. It is so heavy. Up on the top here, you can see all of the spark plug wires, the distributor, and then so many of the components are kind of sitting in this hot V sort of configuration. I guess it's not actually a hot V, but they're using the in between the cylinder banks there to pack all of the intake parts. And it's just amazing how much you can see in there. The engine alone was about 10 or so episodes or kits. So there's a ton of detail. And these spark plug wires were another thing that I elected to use some glue on just because they're so tiny. And Eaglemoss just has you stick them into small holes. There's nothing to give any kind of fixing on there. So just used a tiny, tiny dot of glue on those, and they've held in really well. Another little detail that I like to see is the dipstick. You can see that is right here. Little tiny dipstick. And that goes down through the exhaust manifold. Whoop. It gets buried way down inside there. So yeah, this kit has been extremely impressive so far. I'm definitely going to keep going with it. They added on to the kit. So I think it was originally 130 issues or so, and now it's up to 152, I think, which some of the later ones are a little bit silly. I think they give you a car cover and they want to charge like $30 just for a neoprene car cover that goes over it. So I'm not going to get anything like that. But I know that some of the 20 issues that they added on to add in features from Back to the Future 3. So you can convert the wheels here to the train wheels that you see in Back to the Future 3. And it also comes with a section of railroad track for the display case, so it can be sitting on the rails just as you see it in Back to the Future 3. And it comes with the 1950s electronic box that sits up on the hood there. So some features like that I think will be really fun to add. And I will definitely go through with those things, but some of just the superfluous case features and the covers and stuff I won't go ahead with. So let's set the tub back in place here. And let's go over some of these mod kits here. Okay, the first kit that I want to show off is the famous FluxCapacitor. I elected to get the unfinished kit version of this. So this comes with all of the complete circuits. The circuit boards and lighting effects and everything are already pre-soldered and done, but the housing itself and all of the components in it need to be painted and assembled. I've already taken these out. They come organized in small little bags, much nicer than this. I just put the components back in here for the video. But these are 3D printed. I believe it's a combination of multi-jet fusion and resin printing and SLS printing. This here feels like an SLS part. It's a little bit flexible and it has that sort of sandy texture that you would expect to see out of a laser sintered part. So my guess is this is some kind of nylon, which is pretty common for selective laser sintering. There's a very nice part here. You can see it's, if I can focus, very crisp and sharp. These little dimples here are actual intentional features. They aren't left over from the printing process. Those are something that are on the real FluxCapacitor from the movie. Here's the electronics board. Get back to that in a second. But this, you can see the detail that the laser sintering parts can come up with. This is a very, very finely part. And I think injection molding could definitely do this, but it would be a tricky mold to make. So I think 3D printing was a real good choice here, especially considering these are going to be very, very low volumes. These are geared toward a very few dedicated types of fans that will be interested in these kits. So I think they made a good choice with 3D printing on these. And lastly, the housing itself here is also 3D printed. And it's a very nice part. They give you a piece of plexiglass. This has protective film on it that will go in the front cover here. Like that. And the last little bit here is an extremely intricate set of components that will need to be broken apart, painted, and then installed into the box. And I think that these were multi-jet fusion printed. They have some kind of a very slight residual waxy surface, which is indicative of multi-jet fusion or multi-jet type printing. And the level of detail here is just second to none for a 3D printed part. But again, these parts are tiny. I mean, here's my pinky nail compared to some of these parts here. So these are super, super tiny. They'll be a little bit interesting to paint and install, but there's very, very good instructions from Model Mods on how to do all of this, including paint codes for the airbrush paints that you need to use. So I'll definitely put my airbrush to good use getting these parts painted here. All right, the next little modification I want to show here is the Christmas tree housing. This is in a similar vein to the FluxCapacitor, but is quite a bit simpler to assemble because it consists of just this single 3D printed part here. Seems to be some form of resin printing, SLA or something similar to that. And this circuit board here. And I guess a backing plate here as well. All right, I got this little test harness set up here with those sync things, the sync wire here. And you can see that now these are working great. So as it reaches peak flux, 88 miles an hour. You can see that this rises up to meet that, and as this starts chasing faster and faster, the green Christmas tree starts lighting up more. And it's a pretty cool effect. So I think that these will be great additions to the Delorean model and just add that extra bit of realism to an already incredibly detailed model. The last part to show off here is the power kit. So this is also available from Model Mods. It comes with an AC adapter here and a barrel plug extension cord and a wiring harness to go from the barrel plug to the standard Eaglemoss circuit board and power distribution here. And this just lets me plug it in rather than have it use the batteries. I think this will be really cool. I can tie this into my home automation system, so I can use voice commands to turn this on. I can have it be part of some of the room scenes, which I think would be really cool. So this will be a fun addition. And like I mentioned before, you have to have this power kit in order to use the EL Light mod. It's because this can put 5 volts at 3.5 amps, and that's just more than the batteries are going to be able to handle, especially for any amount of time. So they require you to have this kit if you do the EL kit. So thanks for watching. That is the state of affairs on the Back to the Future Eaglemoss Delorean kit so far. I have been very happy with it overall. It's not cheap, but if you're looking for kind of the ultimate Back to the Future reproduction, short of having a real DeLorean, this is kind of in a class all of its own. It's not perfect. Eaglemoss has been okay-ish to deal with. They're pretty slow on their tech support, even in the best of times, even slower right now given the current social isolation. But overall, I'm very happy. It is very obvious that a lot of people spent a lot of time making this into a kit, and for that I absolutely applaud them. They deserve an enormous amount of credit for what they've accomplished this. Some of the quibbles aside, I've been very happy with it overall, and I'll definitely be continuing for another close to 100 episodes. So that's how it stands. Thanks again for watching. I've got some more projects in the works right now in a similar vein to lit up models. I have this Jurassic Park Jeep model that I need to install into my pinball machine. I modified that to have some very high brightness lights, and this will replace one of the strobe sequences on my pinball machine. Just need to get the right type of plug to replace the strobe jack. So still working on that, but this will be a cool little addition. What else I got? There's plenty of other things outside the house. I'm about due for my Jurassic Park Jeep update as well, and that is pretty much ready to go to paint. So while as this is a just a model DeLorean, the Jurassic Park Jeep is a real Jeep, and it is sitting out in the driveway right now. So stay tuned for a video update on that as well. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.